Good morning or good local time to you. Today is August 25th, and this is the Kubernetes community meeting. We do this once a week. We have our videos of these events posted on YouTube, and you can see whatever you miss in weeks upcoming or weeks prior there. There's a link in the email I send out with the agenda to Kubernetes Dev each week. So this week we have a demo of an AppController by Maciej
Kwiek. Maciej Kwiek.
Kwiek, okay. And we are going to have a couple of special interest group reports and an update on 1.4 from our 1.4 release SAR, including what it means to be a release SAR. And then we're going to go through some 1.5 milestone reminders, because just because we're finishing up 1.4 doesn't mean we're not already thinking about 1.5. So Maciej, do you want to introduce yourself and get us started?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Okay, so my name is Maciej Kwiek. I'm a software engineer at Mirantis, and I'm going to present AppController, which is a tool that that was written by Ilya Kudoszyn, Piotr Skamruk, Jędrzej Nowak, and me, mostly. And it aims to solve the problem of deploying complex workflows which have pieces which depend on each other. So we handle cases in which some Kubernetes objects are heavily dependent on whether other Kubernetes objects are ready. Yeah, so I guess I can start, and later I will answer all your questions, or I will try to. Okay, so the first thing is this. I my screen. This is the dependency graph. It's the first of two. So this, as you can see, here are some jobs, some pods. There's the replica set here. There's service. So the edges in this graph are dependencies. So we can see that what is really at the top of the graph is existing test job, which isn't managed by AppController, but it can be. Yeah.
Make it the font size bigger.
I can try.
Excellent. Thank you.
Cool. Okay, so as you can see, this is an existing job that is not managed and not created by AppController. It is something that is meant to already be in the cluster before we even run AppController, and all the other objects are actually created and orchestrated by AppController when the dependencies for these objects are met. Okay, so I'll go to the demo. So since we made a demo, I think a week or two ago on SIG-Docs, we added some stuff.
Can you make this font sizes bigger again?
Okay. Yeah, sure. Is it good enough?
Let's go one more. There we go. Yes.
Okay. Cool. Okay. So what we need to do is first I will create the job that I was talking about that is already existing in the cluster. Now I am creating a AppController pod. You can see it being created in here. It has an init container which creates additional API endpoints via third-party resources right now. So we need to wait a sec for it to, probably it's possible that it's loading the image because I'm using the latest tag, and I think it could have been updated in between. I'm sorry about that. We will need to wait just a sec for this. So in the meantime, when we're waiting for the image to download, we have this dependency file, which basically it contains, it's a YAML file which contains all the edges from the graph that you saw a minute before. As you can see, it can contain some. It contains normal Kubernetes metadata like kind, name, etc. It also contains our custom metadata. This is the stuff that we're currently working on. This is the success factor for replica sets. So this particular dependency means that it will be counted as ready only if 40% of the replica set pods are ready. Let's see if it's running. Oh, and it's running. Cool. Okay, so now I'm gonna use the file that you saw before and create the dependencies. Now I will create the definitions of the Kubernetes objects, which are basically just Kubernetes objects raw definitions wrapped in third-party resource, because we need to store them somehow for AppController to pick them up and go. Okay, so I will just run this script. There may be some errors, but fear not, everything's fine, because we already have these objects here. So the sleep is because it sometimes takes a bit. It sometimes takes a bit before the third-party resources API extensions are actually going. Okay, so here we can see the log of the actual AppController. It's already running. Yeah, so we can see that there are cycles detected. Okay, this is a new feature. It wasn't on the last demo, so we can see that some of these Kubernetes objects are in a cycle in dependencies. So if we see the graph, I will spare you the details. The dependency that is the problem is actually here. This makes the graph have a cycle right here, as you can see. So this is the graph that we really want to deploy. So what I can do is just use kubectl to get dependencies. Yeah, oh, sorry, the font is up. It's too big. Okay, I hope this is fine. Yeah, so I named this bad dependency as bad, so it can be easy to remove it. I will delete it. Yeah, it's deleted. It's not here anymore. So we can actually run the AppController process again. We do it by executing the binary on the pod right now. It's a bit hacky, but well, it's all really POC quality. So as you can see, the pods are being created. The replica set is being created. The job it was already there. It was successful, so it didn't block the rest of the graph. Yeah, so basically here are the pods for the replica set. The replica set is being created. Sorry, not this one. Yeah. So right now we are at the stage when pod and pod 5 are starting to be ready. We need several more seconds, and then the rest of the graph will go. As I said, we have replica sets. As you can see, it works. We have services. For now we check whether services are created. We are currently working on checking the state of all underlying service objects, so the objects that are selected by the service selector. Yeah, so these pods are ready, so the next pods are being created. We can actually stop it. If we see the logs, then we will see that nothing happens for a bit. After these pods are ready, next nodes and graph should be created, but they won't because AppController process is stopped. But it's not a problem for us because it will just be able to take over when we are ready. If we want to tweak some dependencies in further parts of the graph or something, then it is possible to stop and just start the AppController process again. So as you can see, nothing's happening. I'm running it, and it's creating. Yeah, the service was created 6 seconds ago when I started the process again, and the service is actually right here. So eventual live pod 7 should probably should be created in a minute.
So Maciej, we got a question about waiting. So Mike says, upon what does something wait? What determines if a node is ready for dependency?
Oh, yeah, sure. Okay, so for pods, for example, we use readiness probe. So you, as an operator, as someone who uses AppController, you are defining how does the pod actually becomes ready. Here, it's like really, it's a placeholder. It doesn't deploy anything real, so it just sleeps for a couple seconds, echoes something to TMP health, and readiness probe, as you can see, just checks the contents of this file. But you can do whatever you need in this pod. For pods, for jobs, we check if it's completed. For service, as I said, it's right now it's checking whether it's created, and we are working on improving this. For replica sets, we have these dependencies where you can define how the percentage of the underlying pods that you want to be active. So you can say that, okay, this replica set is fine for my deployment purposes when 90% of the underlying pods are ready. Yeah. Yeah. So I guess it's done. We missed it. Yeah. So it's done. The whole deployment graph went. I know it's kind of hard to see that it's actually there, but it is actually there. You can actually run this demo on your own cluster by using our you can clone the repository and run this if you want to see that it really works. But basically that's the end of live demo. And if there are any questions, I will gladly answer them.
We have one more we have two more in the chat. One is an easy one, which is where's the link to the repo? And the answer is we can put that in the notes. I believe it's in one of the Mirantis repos, yes?
Yes. For now, it lives in right here, Mirantis K8s Kubernetes AppController. So I can send it to you via Slack or?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep, that would be great. And then I know that there is an open feature on this participating somewhere. Right now it's a container that exists on its own that runs this, correct?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Your AppController exists in its own container managing components right now.
Yes, exactly. It's basically, right now it's a pod, it's right here. Which runs the run it process it's based on Alpine. It's running indefinitely, and we are executing processes on it. We plan to have it some kind of API which we can talk to run and stop the AppController, but we had more urgent issues to fix and implement. So for now, for proof of concept, we think it's okay, but we want to go there eventually.
So we've got one more question here, which is, well, one that I see at the moment. Luke doesn't understand fully the motivation. Why wouldn't services just retry if they can't connect to dependent services? What use cases might he be missing in this thought process where it would be sufficient, where that would be sufficient, and then you have to then you can bring up services in any order?
Okay, so one example is multi-slave MySQL. MySQL, which basically needs you to run run pods, and which would need you to run Kubernetes objects in specific order, and you cannot really afford restarts there. Another example, maybe a bit later on, OpenStack deployments where you can specify your whole deployment graph in the AppController format. So yeah, these are two examples when you could actually need this.
Excellent, thanks. And thank you so much for the demo. There may be some other lingering questions you want to answer in the chat, or clarifications you may want to answer in the chat, but we're going to go ahead and move on in the agenda. Thank you very much, Maciej.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, so next up, do we have, I think next in my agenda was the update for SIGs. So Jared, are you on the call to talk about docs?
Yep, I am.
Excellent.
Can you hear me?
Tell us about SIG-Docs, and because you're not brand new to the project, but we introduced you as taking over the SIG-Docs effort from the Google documentation team as John Mulhausen has left. So can you tell us what's going on with SIG-Docs and update us on the plan ahead?
I would love to. Yes, I feel like I've just been pulled out of my shrink wrap. So I know, exactly. Lots of crinkling. So yeah, I think I guess I kind of have my agenda items in reverse order then. So I think, based on your intro, the docs revamp plan is probably the best place to start. And this should be open to everybody in the group. So feel free to take a look.
I shared it with all of Kubernetes Dev. So if you can't see it, you're not participating in the Kubernetes Dev Google group. So
excellent. Yeah, it's definitely open to the SIG-Doc groups. So, so this is just a quick overview of an assessment that Devin Donnelly did on the contents, and I think it matches pretty closely with what engineers in the community have told us. But overall, the goal is to make some immediate changes to Kubernetes docs findability and structure. So we want to get together a solid base of our content and a solid set of processes. So there's some really low-hanging fruit right off the bat, which is fixing our automatically generated reference content. There's some broken parts of that process, which I'll highlight in the dead links report later in my chats. But the core problem is building a set structure and building some templates so that everybody knows what content goes where. Because right now we're at a spot where we really can't scale or grow because nobody knows where to put the content. And developers coming into Kubernetes.io don't know where to find the content. So we're kind of at an impasse. So the assessment and docs plan lists some short-term fixes and some longer-term sort of Q4 fixes that we need to put in place. But over the next quarter, we definitely want to fix the release process with the referenced content just to create a baseline user experience. Then we also want to roll out new templates and a new site structure. Now we'll be doing this in stages, and I've been walking through those stages in deeper granularity in the SIG-Docs meeting. So feel free to, this is my plug for the SIG-Docs meeting, so feel free to jump on that Slack channel or hop in on that meeting. It's weekly on Tuesdays. But most of the content in the documentation plan should not be a huge surprise. We've already started working closely with Philip Whitrock on fixing the content generation process for our reference content. And Steve Perry and Devin Donnelly have already started working on creating new templates, and we'll be sharing the high-level overviews of those templates with the community next week, and then probably in 2 weeks we'll be, giving those to the community to really bang away at and give us some hard feedback on. So,
So Jared, I'm not actually seeing anyone from external to Google in the doc, so you may need to share it.
Okay.
But with Kubernetes Dev would be helpful.
Sure, let me do that.
Thanks.
Uh-huh.
If that note or if that link was added after I sent it out to the community about a half hour ago, then it might not have automatically added it.
Okay, I just added them to the doc. So, please let me know if you can't get into it. So I'm not gonna read the doc out loud to you. I don't think that's the best use of our time. But feel free to take a look at the documentation plan. I have broken this plan up into a spreadsheet, and I'm using that for tracking progress. And I believe I have a PM on the Google side who's going to be helping me out track some of that progress and doing some readout reports for folks at these meetings. So I will start inviting her, and her name is Amanda Lewis, and she's going to be helping us out. So which is great because I am one person and I'm running into sustainability problems with
There's a lot of work.
Juggling all these plates. So so on this, so the high level bullets of this plan, are there any questions right off the bat?
I'm not sure if we have everyone able to get in yet.
Okay.
So we may have to take those asynchronously as far as questions on this. Plus, we do need to keep moving in the agenda. So I think maybe feedback in Kubernetes SIG-Docs on Slack might be a good way to do this.
Sounds great. Yeah, I'm always on Slack, so feel free to ping away at me.
Awesome.
The other sort of high level bullet points, the Kubernetes Bootcamp draft is out. Feel free to take a look. Feel free to send us feedback. Right now, I believe Steve Perry is taking a look through that content and doing a quick fix of some of the content of that. But I would love to have feedback from folks of positive, negative. I've already gotten a lot. It's been great. Also, the dead links report, an engineer ran a link checker against all of our contents on Kubernetes.io, and it revealed a lot of broken links in our reference content, which we need to fix that process. But there's also a lot of broken links outside of that we're working to fix. So if people want to take a look at that report, grab one of those, fix it, I will be most grateful. So thanks a lot. That's all I've got.
Excellent. Thanks so much. Do I see Philip on here? Our 1.4 release czar. Hello? Yes, I see Philip.
I'm here.
Your masquerading is Kubernetes SIG-Docs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I always have trouble with my camera and clicking the buttons.
Oh, buttons, they're so complicated.
They're
So
hard.
tell us about what it means to be a release czar now that you've been handed this scepter and, are in charge of release czaring.
Sure. Yeah. So the role, I think, is it changes a bit from release to release to adapt to the needs of what's going on. But from a high level, it's to shepherd the process of getting the release cut and coordinate, identify what the items that need to be completed are, and either coordinating with other people to make sure that the responsibility for those is taken up, or in some cases doing it myself. Things like cutting the release alpha. I've been working with David McMahon and manually doing, but he's helping me as well as setting up projects for release branch testing and this sort of manual work. I do a lot of. It also means I do a lot of police work and end up being kind of the bad guy a lot of the time. So some things I'm going to talk about in a second that would probably be at the top of the release star list are making sure like that features that are going into 1.4, that the folks shepherding them and owning them have communicated their status, and that we can clearly figure out what made it, what didn't make it, and what might still be coming. Another thing is test stabilization. So Daniel did a ton of awesome work last release around just so many improvements for how we handle flaky tests, but unfortunately there's still a lot of manual human intervention required to fight them back all the way down. And so I'm going to be probably reminding folks and encouraging them to own any flags assigned to them. So I'll get a little bit more into that later. So I'll talk first about the alpha release status, which I was asked about last community meeting, and I've been working hard on getting that alpha cut. There's just been a number of issues, one after another, that have actually kept us from getting it done. And I'm hoping today is the day, but I'll let you know when it's cut. Some of those issues, in case you're curious, are difficulty getting tests passing at a single commit hash, where there's a variety of test suites that run that we depend on, and different ones have been failing for periods of time. So getting all this fixed. Another
and that relates back to the test flakes that we were talking about.
It does go back to the test flakes, and the actual test suites required for cutting the branch is a superset of what's available or what's merge queue blocker. So just because the merge queue is running doesn't mean we're actually good enough to be in a spot where we can cut a release branch. Specifically, the scalability or the serial tests have been quite painful, and they both run slowly, which means it's hard to iterate and get them fixed. And then they also have been failing quite a bit. I've been working with the build cap on that too. So Mike, Denise, if you're here, thank you for your help there. So moving on from the alpha release, feature free status. So in case you don't know, I think TJ may talk about this more later, but feature freeze was on Monday of this week. And so what that means is we do not want to be merging any changes that are not either bug fixes, tests, or docs. So if you have a change that's either for a feature going in that you want to be in 1.4, or a big refactoring, or basically any changes you're making to the code that could introduce problems, we really don't want to put those into 1.4 so that we can cut a release branch soon here and open up 1.5 for everyone. And so if you're working on something that is not a docs change, a test change, or shoot, I forgot what the other one was. Okay. But anyway, if you work on something else, then send an send an email to me or TJ to try and get that, figure out what you should do there. On a related note, I kind of have been monitoring the queue because I know some people don't always all get the message, not everyone's here. So I do apply do not merge labels to PRs where I wonder if I don't understand why this is in the 1.4 milestone. So I'll try and follow up with you on that. And that's just why that's happening. And once I understand what's going on there and it makes sense to get in 1.4, I'll remove that label. Test flakes. I sent an email to Kubernetes Dev, I think yesterday, basically with subject saying important, basically saying, please take a look at all the test flakes assigned to you. It doesn't mean you need the P0 and P1 specifically. It doesn't mean you need to fix them that day. It doesn't mean you need to drop everything and do them, although that would be great. But the first step we do need to do is figure out what's just been dropped on the floor and doesn't have an owner because the person's assigned to is on vacation or is doing something else, right? And so that way I can look at the issues that I know I need to find an owner for. So just remove, I applied a label, it's in the email, but there's labels saying that it requires my attention. So if you're the correct owner and you're going to own it, remove that label. if you're not going to work on it in the next probably 3 days on your test flake, on a particular test flake, then probably leave the label on there so I could try and find a new owner for it. Code/estimate length and branch cutting. I believe TJ can correct me on this if I'm wrong, but I think the original estimate for the cutting the branch would be September 2nd. I'd really like to have that cut down as much as possible because there's a lot of people that really want to get stuff into the one for merged into the one for milestone or merged right away that actually needs to go in 1.5 or is more important for 1.5, and they just don't want it sitting around forever, which is totally reasonable to feel that way. And that's why I want to cut the branch early. And lastly, down the road, just something to be prepared for is upgrade testing is still a pretty manual process. It took a lot of time last release. I'd like to get in front of it as early as possible this release, but we're going to need help there.
And so the first alpha would be cut after the branch? No, you already have alphas.
We don't have an alpha yet. The alpha should be cut. We should have had an alpha. The alpha should be cut before the branch.
Okay.
There's technical difficulties getting that alpha cut. After the branch is cut, we'll start cutting betas.
Okay. All right. So does anyone have any questions about 1.4? What is your ID on Slack, please? Rock.
Yeah, thank you.
I had a real quick question. First, a piece of feedback. This is fantastic, Phil. This is sort of exactly the sort of release status stuff I've been hoping for prior to every release of Kubernetes, and we finally got it. So that's super awesome. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
We'll be here every week.
Noticing that we've had complications cutting an alpha for the past week since we went into code slush, I'm wondering if it makes sense to try and cut the beta slightly before the second, just because the second is the Friday before Labor Day weekend, and I think a good chunk of people are probably not going to be super present. And it would just be ideal if we could ensure the beta is cut before a long weekend before a lot of people are going to lose context.
Okay, that's really good feedback. Thank you. I'm going to try and make that happen. Like, it seems reasonable to me, but I want to make sure that there's nothing I'm not aware of that might be a bad idea for.
So there's also, we would love as much help from the whole community on testing the betas as we can. One of the challenges we had with 1.3 was not getting a lot of, I'll throw it in my test cluster at my local company and run weird stuff against it kind of testing once we cut betas. So whatever effort we can get from you, the community, around that would be super helpful as soon as we get betas out. And we have something from Daniel. He'd argue for cutting the branch first and first beta ASAP. Yes, Daniel, I think we're stuck waiting to try and get a test that is a test suite that is consistent across a single hash, a commit hash.
Yeah, we actually finally got that broken, and now we're having a separate issue with merge conflicts for some reason.
No.
But I'm going to dig into it more.
Okay. Awesome. But yes, I think the goal, Daniel, is that we are going as quickly as we can to that. All right. Other questions for Philip? That sounds like a big fat no, or you're on mute. All right. Well, as I said, we'll try to get a release status from Philip every week we can get his time until we get this thing out the door.
Cool. Yeah, and I just want to give a quick shout out to Eric Toon. He's helped me a lot with this, and I think this release is a lot smoother because of the experience he's helped me learn.
He's the release czar emeritus. He was the 1.3 release czar. Okay, so questions. You can find Philip on Slack at pwhitrock. And yes, we're seeing many thanks in the chat, which is important to say and continue to convey. All right, next up is 1.5 milestone schedule. This should be pretty quick, I think, if TJ said. So, TJ.
Yes. I just unmuted and tried to share. Is
You're good to go.
Is that looking good?
Yes.
Okay. So here is the PR that is out for the 1.5 schedule, if you guys are seeing that. So I'll go into the view so we can actually talk through this. Being proposed at today's community meeting. We went over which since 1.4 is on track for middle of September, that puts us firmly in December. Obviously, the last 2 weeks or so of December are a bad time to try to release things. A lot of people are on holiday. And so basically, I sort of set the end date at towards the beginning of December and built a work back on that. There's also the U.S. Thanksgiving holiday is in there, which is 2 days off for a lot of people working in the U.S., and some people take more. Also, I think KubeCon is in early November, which is a 2-day conference I'm sure lots of people will be at.
So let me stop you for 1 second there, which is count yourself for 3 days.
Okay.
Consider 3 days because we're also going to do a developer summit after KubeCon, and I will be getting more information out soon about how and who gets registered for that, because we're going to try and keep it to a small group while still making it possible to have new fresh blood in. So there will be more conversation about that coming up, but consider that it might be the 8th, the 9th, and the 10th of November.
Okay. And then otherwise, I took one other thing into account. I got feedback from a few people that for 1.4, a lot of our sort of due date or end of the sub milestones landed on Fridays. A few people said that was hard going into the weekend. They'd rather have it land on a Thursday, a Monday, something like that. So I tweaked by a day or two a few things. Otherwise, this looks a lot like 1.4. It's the same amount of coding and almost the same amount of bug fix time. So let's move into the overview. So coding would start just the day after our predicted release date for 1.4. So that'd be September 19th. I've booked 7 weeks of coding, which is identical to 1.4. And that would bring us to feature complete on Monday, November 7th. So this is an instance of moving it from a Friday to a Monday. I think for 1.4, we had good success with sort of letting the queue drain through the weekend as needed. Hopefully we don't need that, but I won't bank on that. And then getting the remainder of things in by Monday, sort of midnight. So we have that one extra day. And then from there, do what we're doing right now, which is moving into a bug fix period. I put this one at 5 weeks instead of the 4 weeks for 1.4. Partially because KubeCon is in there, partially because Thanksgiving is in there. So that looks a lot like a week for a lot of people. And then I put our release for target for December 8th, which is a Thursday. If we manage to slip by a few days, the week after this, I believe is the 9th, 12th through the 16th, is probably feasible to get some work done and maybe get a release out. If we go to the next week, the 19th through the 23rd, we're going to see a lot of people on vacation. So I didn't want to push this too much further back just in case we do end up slipping for a few critical bugs by a couple of days. And then if you scroll down, I put in a little more details. This is sort of in the same format as this, this page was for 1.4 and a couple more details. Looking for feedback or suggestions or any recommendations, although with the kind of hard deadline of middle of December, there's not a whole ton of options to move things around.
Thank you, CJ. Does anyone have anything they want to talk about, or can we just send you feedback offline? Or do we want to try and just say, yes, we're good to go, let's merge this? Or prove it. Doesn't sound like there's a lot of commentary, so I'm good with, let's put this out there and we adjust as we, there we go, we've got a bunch of +1s coming through. let's go with it looks good, and we'll adjust it if we have to, as we have done with so many things in this community.
Yes, absolutely. All right, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, TJ. Awesome. All right, so we have a little bit of time, and so we have the possibility of another special interest group report. Is there anyone who wants to give an update? I didn't ping anybody because I'm at ContainerCon this week, so I missed that. As far as pulling up another special interest group. Volunteers? All right, then let me tell you a little bit about what I'm planning for the Developer Summit after KubeCon for November 10th. So Cameron, Zahidi, and I are working on pulling together. First, Cameron has, I believe, secured space at this point. So we will have it on the 10th of November, which is the Thursday following KubeCon. And the idea at this point is we want to keep it a small group so we have really meaningful discussions about the future of Kubernetes. And all of this is going to come out in formal docs and how to engage with this in the upcoming week or weeks, but it's good to give you guys a heads up. There are going to be multiple rooms which will have topics assigned to them, and we're going to ask people to submit topics. So this isn't submitting talks or proposals for talks. This is submitting more like a BOF topic. And we'll do some curation for some of the rooms to give us space and intent with what we want to make sure gets talked about. And then we're going to leave some rooms as more of an unconference, empty, or without topics, so that people can have ad hoc topics come up as necessary there. It's going to be one day. In keeping it to 150 people, we're going to do this I'm proposing that we do this in an interesting way. We do this about half or a little bit more by invite, so we know that we get the people that need to participate for sure. Make sure we have at least one person, one developer from each of the core contributing companies, making sure that we do have the right group of people participating that can help move things forward, make decisions, and potentially take information back as to their companies. And then we'll have some small portion based on who submitted topics that need to be talked about. And so will have a topic submission process, and so some people will be invited based on submitting topics and being willing to guide those discussions, or even be administrative help on those discussions. And then there will be another pool of seats which will be lottery. So it will be, please sign up, and then we will fill from that list through a random lottery for people so that we can get fresh blood in, so that we can get people engaged, because we're going to have too many people, I hope we have too many people that want to participate for this planning and community discussions, and face-to-faces like the SIG Storage had a big face-to-face a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, that kind of thing. So does anybody have any commentary on that as a model at this point, as to how we can make sure we have a small enough group to have meaningful discussions, and also make sure that the right people are participating, that there's broad distribution, and that we're not excluding people who might be newer to the community? And Eric says, honestly, 150 seems pretty large. Yeah, I was struggling with that number too. Now think of that as five tracks, so 5 different rooms. So it might be 5 separate conversations of more like 30 to 50. There will also be hallway tracks, I'm sure, and so on. Does that still seem really big, Eric?
I mean, it does, especially when we say 5 tracks going on at the same time. There are going to be certain key individuals who will want to be in 3 out of the 5 at given times. I don't think it's a bad idea, right? Yeah, I don't think that's a good solution in one day. So.
Yeah, That's where I ended up was. Your connection is really loud and really bad, so I'm going to mute you. I apologize. Or you did already. Excellent, thank you. It is robo-tuned, exactly, Jason. So I agree that it's big, but I think we're going to have even more people than that wanting to participate. So that was why I set the number that way and tried to make it partly invite and partly partly a lottery.
I did have one concern, which is the decision-making model around this, just to make sure it's open and it's not sort of the behind closed doors, everybody making decisions, and then there's some big thing that comes out of it. So I think just making sure that we have transparency in terms of what decisions are on the table to be made and what is the accountability. So if the Council of Elders is present or whoever is sort of the decision-making body at that point, I think that'd be really good, just to make sure that's happened.
Okay. And yes, I think my whole role here is to try to improve transparency generically. So I'm totally on board, Jason, with that. And the topics that would be proposed, I want to do as some sort of vote, which leads to the next, I just said vote, which then suddenly makes some people try to run away from the community. We're trying to do a bunch of this by, general broad consensus as much as we can without falling into risks of block voting and the dumb pieces of politic. So it's a Sig Taylorship. Okay, there we go. So Clayton makes a good point. We're building a great big distributed system which doesn't have power either hierarchically managed or completely distributed to everyone who has an interested opinion in it, informed or not. And so we're trying to distribute the power into the special interest groups as much as possible, with exception processing handled differently. So we will definitely be pulling in the special interest groups to make sure that topics for their areas are covered well, and getting people with general interests. So this again it's more like a republic and less like a straight democracy. In the land of voting though, and to your point about elders, I had kicked the can of how we would vote on elders down the path a bit, and I still need to close out the proposal on elders and get that signed up, but there will be a further plan about voting after I get that done. All right, questions for me about this, suggestions? I'm operating on the no surprises model of community management, or trying to anyway, so I float ideas early here before they're fully formed, get some feedback, and try to tune them up. Okay, so we have a SIG-Tatorship and a new t-shirt. Thanks, Aaron. All right, anyone else have topics they want to talk about before we break for all of August? Our next meeting is September 1st. That's it. Oh.
I was going to say one quick thing. I wanted to thank everyone for all the work that you've done on the feature repo. I can't stress that enough, how valuable people have found that. And I know TJ already talked about the timeline for 1.5. Please start thinking about your features now. Talk to your SIG leaders, get consensus in your SIGs, and bring the proposals. And there's also a bunch of stuff that moved from 1.4 to theoretically the 1.5 timeline. Please go back. Let's try and avoid things going stale. So just do your best.
So just kind of quickly on that comment, I think there are a couple features that were marked as stable or ready to go in 1.4 that still don't actually have any of their checkboxes checked off, nor do they have any links to any issues within the Kubernetes project that detail how it was finally implemented or what its current state is. I'm thinking specifically of the node spec thing and Docker validation. I can try digging up those features in a second. And I know Dawn is very busy, and maybe this is just a conversation I need to have with her, but just sort of a broader thing. It seemed like when we were going through the feature burn down, a lot of people said, "Yep, totally, we'll take care of this later. We'll check. We'll like put the label on now, and we'll check the boxes later." And it's been a couple days, and I still really haven't seen a whole bunch. So I agree, it's a huge step forward, but just while I sort of understand the spreadsheet that Ihor presented to us last meeting and what's considered like ready to go for alpha, it's still kind of difficult to get a model of like what's actually implemented.
Fully.
Are there any others besides that one that you're concerned about? I mean, here's my default. My default is it gets punted. So if it's not done, I will say, Dawn, sorry, this doesn't make it, and that will be that. That's my vote. If we're going to be follow a model, then we should follow a model. So I will have a very frank conversation with that. Are there other people that you'd like me to have a conversation with?
Well, it looks like there's a decent number of them where the right work is happening, but the feature bug updates are lagging.
Sorry, the feature repo is out of date?
Yes, basically our checkbox list. People are making steady progress, but they're not going back and checking everything. And we tried to sort of prod people to do that earlier this week as we hit feature complete, but some still are not in that updated state.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's, I will be very polite but firm with as many people as you call to my attention. So I will have a conversation in 10 minutes with Dawn.
Hey, David, much appreciated. You have our support and sticking to your guns on that one. I think it's important.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you. And we are, of course, trying to write up the summaries of what is in 1.4 and getting it ready for all of the press releases as well, because that's coming soon with the release. So Ryan also mentioned that there was the CNCF swag store was announced today. And for those of you who are contributors, there are patches showing on there right now, which I am going to go scramble and send an email to remove because they shouldn't be there, because they should be only for contributors. And so if you get there really fast before I do, then yes, the price right now actually is contribute. So it's a pretty high price, Justin. Thank you. Yes. So in any case, if you need or want any Kubernetes swag, we can now you can now purchase it. And if you send me a code, we don't want you to necessarily have to purchase. Or if you send me an email, and I'm getting a deluge of emails now, I'm not looking for everyone to have to purchase it. But if there's somebody who hasn't gotten a T-shirt, etc., and really wants it, send me a note and I can send you a code, because we want to start being able to get these out more evenly distributed and to more people, of course, and have you also as the people who are leaders in the community be able to offer this to people to get them engaged in the community and get them, rewarded for work that they do, etc. So keep me in mind. And Tim's getting a tattoo, I see. Fantastic. It's the Kubernetes logo. All right. Thank you all. And I hope you have a great week. I will see you. To David's point, everybody did wonderful work against 1.4, and it really is a delight to work with this community. We seem to have a very high standard of code quality, interpersonal communications quality, fairness for our own value of fairness, and it is a delight to work with you all. So thank you. Joe, I'll work on temporary tattoos. All right. Have a great week. I will see you all next week.
Thanks all.